Right, exactly, that's what I'm saying.
We'll call the IT committee meeting to order. 10:30 a.m. In a second. The first item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? The next order of business, 911 connectivity issues.
I think a couple weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, Nida had sent me an email and said that she was still having problems with the connectivity and that she was concerned, like over the weekend, that it was running really slow, that something would happen over the weekend. So I had area-wide look into it. They sent me the diagnostics. It really didn't show anything that they could see from their perspective. And we've kind of had a few conversations back and forth trying to figure out what's going on. And so far, we don't know. So I'm working with Jeff and Greg and the team to try and determine some metrics. We're going to have them testing it, determine what to look for, how to look for things, what we need them to test to try to understand a pattern so that we can troubleshoot what's going on. And that's really all the farther we are with it. And really we did nothing for like 6 weeks because it seemed like I thought Nida was going to just kind of monitor it. But then on that Friday afternoon, it's like we really can't just wait. We want to address it and figure out what's going on and get it fixed. So that's kind of where we're at.
That's why I didn't say anything. I talked to you about that. It somewhat got better, and then now it comes and goes, to be truthful with you. My computer is absolutely terrible as far as being able to connect sometimes. Like just to get on the internet, get off the internet. I mean, it is just not our CAD program. It's a variety of things to be able to do. And we've tried to double check our equipment. We've contacted Emergitech just to see something if it's something to tie in with the CAD system. You know, we've tried to do everything. So it's almost to a point, sometimes you have to wait for something to break before you figure out what it is. You know, and that's about where we're at.
Good on that.
So we're working on it. It continues to be one of our issues. So.
Which brings us to the next item of business. Since everybody was familiar with Corey, now Corey's no longer with Area Wide. And I've never met Greg myself, so
Yes.
if you could introduce yourself,
Sure.
please.
Sure, Greg Wolf, Area Wide, Account Manager.
You know Rusty?
Yeah,
Everyone know
Rusty.
Rusty?
Yeah.
Rusty's been around
Yeah.
since we've been working with Area Wide.
Yeah.
So, Greg, you've been with Area Wide about a year?
year.
Right, right. Yeah, you can join us at the table if you'd like, but so I met Greg probably, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yes.
He came up and we met for the first time, so Greg will be watching our account, and we've had several conversations kind of on where we're at right now, and he's been getting engaged in our process and all our issues. So, the one thing I did tell area-wide, and they're kind of talking amongst themselves, meeting, and then that, I guess it's farther down the list, the FY16 budget that's really kind of addressing what we have right now, what they think might be next, what we should be looking at, etc. I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Highways had issues with their network as well, so I know somebody at Area Wide's been, I think Brian has been in touch with Joel and talking to him about different options that may give them better performance out there. I don't think it's our stuff that's the issue, it's your ISP that's the issue out there.
We're trying to go to the hardline system through Mediacom rather than the wireless that we've got right now.
this something it's water under the bridge, but could we have avoided this if we would have addressed it when we made our strides here?
No. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could have, but it was all down to, I mean, it's down to our availability of internet providers or at our location. Wireless at the time was about the only affordable option we had, and it's not, the reliability is just not there. But John Deere next door has put medium-count cable into their building, so now, yeah. Wait a long enough, somebody will move it in closer.
Nice. And I'm sure that's not a chintzy one either.
Mm-hmm.
Good line. That's a good golf course. How many feet of cable do you need?
I'm not sure where, I think I'll have to go from out road ditch. 600 feet, something like that. What road we get in there.
So that's good news, right? That's a solid fix.
Yeah, sounds like it. Once the meeting comes up.
Right.
And get to a point where I probably need two different providers, because unfortunately with our AT&T problems that we've had, shut down every business, shut down 911, and shut this down, shut that down. We need to be looking at different things in the future.
The Mediacom was still up on the big cut we took in Papanoff. Mediacom stayed up because there was telephone, people had Mediacom phones.
Mediacom
From the hospital, we were able to make contact
goes to
with
the
them.
satellite, it's a tower out there, and leaves this area by satellite instead of going through the
Telephone
AT&T
line.
cable,
Right.
which the U-verse and everything else goes through that AT&T cable. And most people's cell phones, they don't know.
I think they know it now.
Yeah. They're figuring it out. Once, twice, three times, you'll figure it out.
Okay?
So let's move on to the next item.
Yeah.
Votex server transition.
This was actually something that just came up out of the blue. Lisa had gotten an email from Votex saying they were no longer, like mid-July, no longer going to support Microsoft Server 2003, which, if you remember right, when we did the whole transition to our consolidated server, we left Votex off to the side, running their old server. We just moved it into the server room because it's an Oracle-based. No, interrupt me if I'm wrong. If it's Oracle-based. And the thought process at that point was Oracle bases the license on the number of users on the server. So by moving it to the consolidated, our thought process was that it was going to look at all the users in the county and our cost would greatly increase. So I had area-wide get involved about what were the options at this point to do something about this essentially within 60 days. And they worked with Votech, had several conversations with Votech, and found out the way it is structured, we could put it into our consolidated server without that increase in the license fee, the big astronomical increase. So they actually did that, spun off a new server. This is, I mean, how quickly it happened. Spun off a new server on our consolidated server for Lisa. It cost like $1,100 in license fees and stuff like that for her. She's going to have some labor, I think some area-wide labor she's still looking for some bills on. But really that's it, and within a week her new server was up and running on the consolidated, and we have decommissioned the old one, and Votech is now on our consolidated server. So it happened really quickly and pretty painless, I think. I mean, Brian got engaged in it and worked directly with Votech, but it happened pretty quickly. So that was actually nice. So she's going to have a brand new server for a couple $1,000. So. And we took out another one of those ancillary servers that was kind of hanging on our system and simplified it. So that's good.
Cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner.
Next item is the treasurer's office, XP workstations.
Right, and when I was talking to area-wide just about FY16 projects and what we should be looking at, what they mentioned to me is, well, you still have all these XPs around the county that you got to get rid of, which we were going off an old list. And so I went through it, and really almost all of them had already been replaced, and we didn't know it. And there were like things like the 911 and sheriff's the old ones were still on our list. So once we updated those for all the ones I knew that had been replaced, there were really just a couple outliers. There's one XP that Lisa has in her office, Lisa Fancher in the county clerk's office, that she says she uses for ballots and doesn't touch. That's all she uses it for, is ballots, and it doesn't touch the network. So that's hers. I went over to the treasurer's office. There were 3 in the treasurer's office, that one up at the counter and the 2 inquiry machines, public inquiry machines, that were all XPs. So what she said is, really I only need the one. One inquiry, public inquiry, would be fine. And she didn't need one of the counter machines. So we're going to get rid of all 3 of those XPs. She'll replace it with a new machine. I got a quote yesterday from Area Wide. She gave me approval this morning to go with that, so I told the guys before they leave here we'll sign that quote, and she'll get working on that. So within 30 days, we'll have those off as well. Really, and that's,
How many is that the list?
yeah, this is everything I know that's on the network as of now. The age, you can see the acquisition information on the right-hand side, that I've been able to, everything I've been able to identify. There are some things on here, I'm not sure what they are, a few holes that I need to fill in right now. You can see down on the bottom of page 3, I think I emailed that, and there's 2 there, one for Rusty. But like that health department stuff, all their stuff came over from the old health department, from FIPHD, pretty much, except for their 2 new tablets. So I really didn't have any information, but I talked to Dee this morning. They have most everything for me so that I can fill that in and know what's going on there. And then a couple pieces out at Highway. But for the most part, it's in pretty good shape, I think. There's a lot of the printers on the front, they're old. If it's not the proven ones, I don't know. They're older than the last couple years anyway. And you can see some of them, I was able to put in, like, there's a compact in the treasurer's office. All I could find on that is that was an acquisition from 2005. There's a counter one in the assessors that I think I traced back to 2003. One of them, he's got one that's still real old. Then I just plugged in the year of acquisition. But if it was bought in the last 3 years, I went back and found the actual invoice and tracked it back and was able to fill that in so we can tell exactly what we have and where we have it. There's another aside to this in that I've been talking with Randy Schultz about our insurance coverage. He's going to talk to finance, I'm sure, about it, which was part of this. He's been concerned, as listening to the minutes and the meetings, the investment we have in IT in terms of our insurance coverage. And so that was really the start of it, plus then the conversations with these guys, just being able to understand exactly what's on our network. That was the whole intent of this. But our insurance coverage is something that will be addressed in finance. His words yesterday was woefully underinsured. So,
Is that figure is specific to IT? Is that
Yes.
a line item?
yes.
Good.
He said if you don't have it specified out separately, it's covered under your general, and it's really not adequate. So I think he's going to talk to what that would mean and any changes we would have to make. But that really was the start of it, between those and the conversations with area-wide on the XP, that I really wanted to finish this up and get a good list so we know what we have on the network, what the value is, make sure our insurance coverage is adequate, but also understand what we have and where we have it. Things like the XP. So that's an easy answer. What types of machines do we have where? Where do we have some vulnerabilities? As we look at what we invest in next, what do we have now? So I feel pretty comfortable with the XP machines that are all, I think, taken out. So.
Okay, next item is the next year's budget.
Right. I guess all I really have, we haven't done any real work on it. The one thing that did come up in general conversation is addressing Joel's issues at Highway, which he pays for out of his budget, and they're working with him on that project. So area-wide has been talking amongst themselves in terms of the network as a whole, and what you can see, really, you know, a lot of equipment's been replaced in the last 3 years. There are some big chunks that are now 3 years old. Where do you start to replace that? What are our open issues?
Well, when we started this whole thing, our goal was to stay current and not fall behind. What I would like to see, or maybe area-wide can give us this off the cuff, but if we had a grade card, you know, whether it's an overall grade or areas that we can start to target, and, you know, let's say everything is fairly good right now, but what items do we need to start picking off first? Where's our risk? Where's our exposure? I just, you know, I'm sure I won't, you know, be here down the road as positions change, but I would just like to see this thing with a continuous momentum to carry itself indefinitely.
Well, and really, I guess I did on the IT committee meeting this month, just in case you guys had some input. Before, area-wide is planning on coming back next month with their recommendations, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to give any input you wanted this month. So,
Any comment from area-wide on our, to give us a progress report on our grade maybe, off the cuff?
Just because you're...
Yeah, I mean, it's been really positive improvement in the past 3 years.
You're not going to hurt our feelings if you give us the...
No, I don't have a grade. I would have to review it in full to give you a grade.
I thought Corey gave us like a B+ 2 months
Yeah.
ago.
I was just going to say a B, B minus.
You're like setting them up.
Yeah.
You think that's pretty...
I'd have to look at
You're
it
not
in
gonna
full.
say.
Well, you know, just for me to say.
Because I think I have the same thing with him, but what, you know, and I'm not saying we have to have an A because it's all relative to money, but, you know, I don't want to see that thing dip below a B minus because then you're going to dig into a hole you can't get out of. Let's throw a lot of money at it.
It's all been very positive improvement. I mean, you know, the workstation replacement, refresh, and server refresh, those are all very positive things. I would just need to review that with our team to provide a grade.
I mean, we took a lot of fire early on, a lot of criticism, and I think, you know, the results have shown through. I'm not going to take any credit for this, but when I look back to when we first started, you know, we were consulting different people and trying to figure this out. We had nothing, so to speak.
Well, as far as comments or suggestions from us, I'm assuming at this point we have no big scary holes that are staring us in the face, or we would be hearing about it currently. Is that correct?
I would say, yes, there's nothing obvious at this point.
So, are we in fact keeping an eye open for anything major coming down the pipe, but concentrating on a replacement calendar? Is that...
I can speak to what our team has talked about in reconstruction. Yes, that's exactly. So what we're going to come back with in that FY16 budget is going to show you, the priorities. We're going to list everything, projects and ongoing renewals, etc. But yes, and I think one of the things, from what the conversation I had with Corey, the conversation I had with Brian, with Rusty, the one thing that we're going to suggest and look at is going to be a disaster recovery plan. So that's currently not in place, but we feel is very important and has a lot of value. So as far as it's not a problem today, but to be best prepared for.
Does that help our insurance rates? It should.
I believe it does, but I'll get that confirmed. But I do know, in some of my other roles, I've sat on the school boards, community college boards, and it did reduce the premium of the disaster recovery.
I mean, that would be a fourth item, but I had three general categories, Dale, and one was, in my mind, one's just the straight hardware and the functionality of the whole thing. Two is staying current with software and how it's working amongst the departments, because we still have that issue of these people have their own budgets and we still have an IT budget. So where does that line get drawn where it's the county's, the IT committee's responsibility versus those individual departments? And then another one to look at is like Bob's area. There could be a lot of potential stuff just being driven out of there with the GIS. I mean, just because I have some experience with it, but I say eventually you're going to go more online in that department.
I've talked to Rusty all the way before. Right now, all the maps and stuff are on the server, and it's using up a lot of space. But because I'm going to edit, in fact, Bruce Harris is coming this afternoon to download some more data, and I'm going to start editing maps. And it needs to be on the server right now for that purpose. But once it's totally online, my thought process, talking to Bruce Harris, is to remove it from the server and put it out in the cloud, because it's going to be web-based anyway. So why do we have to? And then they'll be able to update it from their, from Batavia for splits and stuff like that, and also we can edit it, and we'll save a lot more room, and there'll be less cause for disaster concern that will, there'll be always be backed up, and then also that would save a lot of space on the server.
Just on an aside, that really is the way you see the trend going. Within the last month, I listened to a webinar on Abila, that's Sage, our financial software, and their big new thing, they have an FY15 update coming out next month, but their big thing within 60 days, they're going to do a web-based, take it web-based. So we would actually, it's a separate software, you would have to sign up for that. It's not, what we have now is okay, and they're going to continue to support that. But really, their effort is going into the functionality of this web-based product. And of course, I'm sure it's going to be quite expensive, and I didn't do too much research into it. But the functionalities, the graphing, the amount of reporting, and the ability, really, you would just give out usernames to your people, and they would go out and get their own reports whenever they want to. You would define the access. In the days of me printing the reports, copying the reports, you would move away from that. So Abila is moving that way. The software programs that Kyle had me look into for dog licensing, the 3 secondary ones I looked at 4. 3 of the 4 are web-based now, and the 4th is rolling out a new product web-based by August 1st. So it's definitely the trend. Whether or not we move with that is going to be kind of a decision here. So it will be something to look at.
Is that something we need to add to the agenda as a project?
To look at those web-based.
Back to the disaster recovery, does that also encompass redundancy and immediate problems, like 911 or like a down system?
Yes, it would, and what we would look at here for a DR would be the courthouse. It's directly connected by fiber, and so we would want to replicate basically. It would be a significant investment. And similar hardware that you have here over there, and it would continuously replicate over there, so it could be online in case of a disaster, yes.
And that's not, in my opinion, that's not really a big deal. In fact, we can budget that.
Okay.
If we start working on that now, we can budget that 2 years down the road, just like we did a lot of this stuff, or in phases, whatever.
And let me see that for you.
What are the steps, Anita, as we approach the budget deadline? Are there a preliminary? I mean, we don't have a clear path of what we want to do for projects and money, so.
And that is an issue, and we need to do a better job, better than we did this year. This year we said, we don't have any projects, and within 30 days of the beginning of the fiscal year, we had 2 things that needed to be addressed. So we can't, that's not right to let that happen again. We should go through the budget process, which is why I really wanted to better define it this year. So I'd like to look at these projects in July, maybe start to lay things out. The budget hearings are not going to be until, they will be the last week of July, is our typical, and then we look to finalize the budget by September, October for next fiscal year. Last year we voted in October. It's always been around October, I think, so really by September,
So-
we got to have it pretty well nailed down.
Would it be safe to say we would need for the next meeting some ballpark budgetary quotes on
Yes.
these large items?
And that's what we have planned based on our
Okay,
conversation. We've already started listing those things and then putting some budgetary numbers with them.
Plus or minus 20%.
Right, right, exactly,
Some numbers out there.
right.
Any other budget concerns? Russell? No budget.
Something wrong right now. It's a fast-changing world. It seems like it slowed down a little bit from where it was 10 years ago, though, at least. So,
It has to do with our age.
Well, yeah.
I usually go our tax cycle, it's still a thought for.
That's hard to believe. How much of your information can be accessed by somebody sitting in their armchair? Any? None yet? Because that'll be next.
That'll all change in a year.
Especially with the cloud-based.
And then IT, and the board will have to determine if you're going to limit access to, or just open it up. Either, it's a wide range in the state, some counties it's all,
A lot of them
for free, some have limited access for free, and then
Right.
enhanced access for a subscription cost. This is something we'll have to talk about.
But for sure, there'll be no access allowed unless you register, correct, typically? You'll have to give an email address. So there's some traceability, what you're hacking into the
Yeah, you want to get
county
logged.
system.
Yeah.
Well, and that-
For Kankakee, I'm a member of the Board of Realtors, so I use their user ID and password to get in there. Livingston County, same thing, it's a username and password, so, and Livingston, the guy I get the username from is a subscriber, same way, Board of Realtors. They don't charge a lot, but they do charge some. And then you can get on Livingston County for nothing and just get limited access. Ford County, you can get anything, just log on with no username or nothing, just log on to the website.
And that'll kind of tie into, like, we have offerings with GIS as well, right? We start doing some mapping overlays.
In fact, the health department already wants to start working on a layer, like right now, and they're gonna start working with Bruce Harris, and area-wide, I'll probably get them involved when we get, Bruce Harris and health department are gonna work it out first, and then go to area-wide.
So as we develop these layers,
They want to start plotting it all,
it's not a bad idea. As we start developing these layers, who starts paying for it?
you pay, if you, like, say, the city of Waseca wants to develop a layer for their underground stuff, they would develop it and pay for it, so, through Bruce Harris.
Directly to them.
But they would, but you have to, as a county, you own the base. You have to decide whether you're gonna charge the city of Waseca, city of Gilman, whoever, for access to that base map. And then
Is
they
that
go
a
on.
continual charge, or-
Then they go on the web, and then they would only have access to, well, they can have access to a lot of things, but they could only edit that layer that
Theirs.
belongs to them.
And that would be a continual thing they have to pay for, or however we set it up?
However you want to set it up. 'Cause I would assume the city wants, they've already, the city, the water department's already talked to me a couple times about getting, when there's gonna be up and going, so they can start putting stuff on. So, yeah. It'll all have to be discussed down the road.
So for Bruce Harris, basically, that was like planting a seed. I can see how the business works now.
And then like, we said if she wants to do voter districts or registered voter map, she would develop it, she would have to come out of her budget to develop that. Same way with zoning layer, the zoning department would have to pay for that, so, yeah.
What happens if we have a fallout with Bruce Harris? Then what? How would that ever get transferred?
We have rights to get it back.
Okay.
You could have that, and we have to find a different vendor.
So they're not holding us hostage?
Contracts pretty specific.
And we were pretty thorough when we selected them. I mean, we checked all the
There's
options.
only a couple of rules in the state, there's only a couple vendors anyway. It's pretty much a monopoly.
Yeah, and then as long as these guys are familiar with how that works, how they want to tie it in. Any other comments on the budget issues? Any other IT issues to bring to committee.
Lisa, I told them VOTEC went fine. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
That was essentially my whole input, yeah.
Agreed.
It was easy.
It was better than I thought.
Good.
Went well.
So it's another one checked off the list.
Mhm.
If there are no other issues, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned?
Second. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
All right.
Opposed,
We
say
don't have
no.
any silos left.
Hmm?
We don't have any silos left.